Crimes Act 1914 states that a delay in prosecutions is a question of fact, which in actual fact goes to a jury. So this question goes to them, not to the judiciary. Is that fair? Do you understand why I put them over there? Still need one seat. Please. And when we get 12 over there, we actually have a jury sitting. Well done, Colin. Can somebody give those guys a piece of paper, please? That's just come in. Who's handing out those bits of paper? No, she's on the jury. Sorry. We need someone in that seat. Who's putting it up their hand to get in that seat? Yeah, go for it.
We now have our jury.
Is everybody in agreement? We've got a jury trial over there. Is that okay? Because you're all going to be asked this question later, was it done correctly? Now that's totally different than a grand jury. The piece of paper you've got in your hand is a grand jury application. Totally different than this one over here. Anyone who's got legal matters before the court that's getting a bit of flogging, you can actually say, Your Honour, I'm applying a question of fact to this, and it's got to be reserved for a jury trial. There it is over there. Now how the jury trial works is they'll look at that piece of paper that they've got and say, why was Mr. Rob Holt, why did he not go to trial? Is that a fair question? You've got a grand jury application stamped by the Supreme Court in 2006. Your Attorney General of Victoria did a hell of a lot of criminal activity before and after 2006. And he was the one who introduced legislation to the Victorian Parliament to get rid of the grand jury right. But did he put that document before the Parliament to say, I've got applications against me for a grand jury? So could he have actually made the application to the Parliament to abolish it? What do you think? You're the jury.
Conflict of interest.
Oh, not a bit more than conflict of interest. Isn't it indictment?
Yes.
Correct.
Obstructing justice.
Now, what is the criminal offence of treason? I hear a lot of opinions, but not legal ones. The criminal offence of treason is breach of allegiance.
Breach of trust.
Now, Terry, can you give me the second one, please? Really, that's just a night at the movies. Everyone enjoys it, but nobody does anything after it. So I'm doing it totally different. This way, when you finish, when this finishes, you can walk over there and take whatever picture you want of these boards. Is that fair? Because all your cameras are very good today. It even makes you a professional photographer. What this is on January 1, 2004, the West Australian Parliament passed an act, or enacted an act, that chucked the Queen and the Crown out. Are they allowed to do that?
No. Why for someone to hold that up?
Yes, please. Not you, you're on the jury. Who can hold this up? Please. Okay, just down there. That's just so they can all see it. But what we got there is the two players who signed what's called the enactment. This is the enactment. That's actually the finish. The Governor of West Australia signed it, chucking the Queen out, and then inserted himself. And the Attorney General of West Australia, this is the Attorney General, that's the Governor. Now there's something common happening here. That Governor, and if you look at every Governor in the state, not when they've got their business suit on, but when they've got their military gear on. You're under martial law when they chuck the Queen out. Are you aware of that?
Yes.
Do you know the consequence of being under martial law? Under martial law, they can shoot anybody who's dead and they're not accountable to it. Are you aware of that?
Yes.
Well, come on, Aussie. Understand when they're applied, and that's international law. That's why that says is neither St. John or Jerusalem. This is all military. Now, I initially could not work out why the criminal charges that I was filing were being stopped until I understood that Australia's been in trustee in bankruptcy since 1948. Now, do you understand what I just said? You can put that over there, Jerry. You can bring me out the figure. What I just said was, in 1948, Australia went into a trusteeship in bankruptcy. Anybody been aware of that? Now those two suckers just walked in, so can you give them a piece of paper, please? If they try to duck out the door, just trip them over. But, now how did that happen? After the Second World War, all the countries that were involved in the war were called into a place called Yalta, which is in Russia. So it's communist at the beginning. And all those countries were made instantly bankrupt because they couldn't pay the war debt. And the United Nations was formed to do the administration of that bankruptcy. So in actual fact, you're not under a constitution or a monarch, you're under a receivership in bankruptcy.
Yes.
Is that fair? No. But what are you going to do about it? The average Aussie goes on the web and does absolutely nothing because they don't want to leave the office. It's real easy to do a hell of a lot of law on the internet. But the real action is in the courtroom. The average Aussie doesn't want to get in the courtroom because they say, oh gee, what will it cost me? Well, if you've got a card, pension or whatever, in the federal or high court it costs you $100. If you add the word quasi-criminal to your matter, they can't get it via cost order. You got that?
Even in the lower courts?
Of course. Quasi-criminal.
How do you become one of those?
You just say this is quasi-criminal.
What does that mean?
That's all you have. It's both civil and criminal. And because it's quasi-criminal, you can't attract a cost order.
Like
I'm
a
saying
speeding
that.
fine.
Well, I'm not saying the speeding fine itself, but I'm actually saying, and we'll move into that, but in the interim, that one's sort of this is the Queen. Now here's your problem. This one is what you call the government of the order. Now that creates a big problem for Australians because they all think they're sitting under a monarch, a constitutional monarch, when they're actually sitting under a Masonic government. This one. This is called the Knights of St. John of Jerusalem. Over there on the diagram, the big one, can you bring that over, Jerry? It's called, no, hold that one, please. It's called both the Knights of Malta and the Knights of St. John of Jerusalem. Where did these come from? They all come from the Crusades. They were all formed in the Crusades. They haven't stopped. Now I want to give you a real big reality check here. Anybody who belongs to Freemasonry is an actual de facto Muslim. And I'll tell you why I can say that. Because this little chart, and I blew it up to as far as I could get it, hold that one there. It's really difficult managing two microphones, but not to worry.
Right, let me put this one up.
No, later. Here, it's saying, we'll do that in about 10 minutes, Jim. How'd you get out of that jury seat?
I applied for leave.
You affected the hearing. Down here it's the three lodges, what they call Blue Lodge. But as you move up, you've got the York right here, Scottish right here. But what that's saying is really important. It's saying that to be a Shriner, you have to be either a 32nd degree or a Knights Templar, which in actual fact should put the Shriners smack in the middle. Fair comment? Who's the oath to the Shriners to? The spiritual oath. Does anybody know? That oath to, they got him under here, which is really deception in itself, because he should be there. But who is the spiritual oath to in the Shriners? It's to Allah. Now that actually means every Mason sitting underneath all of this, from there, doesn't know they're sitting under other. Got it? What would you rule as a jury? They've said you've got a constitutional monarch, allegedly a Christian monarch, who's possibly a de facto Muslim. Is that right or wrong? I'll tell you what I'll do, so we've not got this problem. I'm handing them back. Here, Barry, take yours, please. You can work it whatever way you want. It is not working. Because the acoustics in this room are good.
Who's
Can you spell it? Oh, okay. So they all know what
It's
it means.
phonetic.
That stops that sort of rattling. They all want it so they can go on YouTube. I'm not interested in YouTube. I'm interested in the people who showed up. That's you. Is that fair? Because you showed up. And the jury, well, we had to subpoena them. They're here unwillingly. But they're going to give a decision at the end of this. The decision that they're looking for is, should Rob Holmes' grand jury application have gone to trial? What's the date of the stamp?
206. Yeah, 206.
It's now 2020. And they're not allowed to stamp my grand jury applications at the court. They're not allowed to do that. But one day some yahoo was minding the court during a lunch break and he stamped it. So I walked out with a stamp. I don't know what happened to that guy.
Sorry.
But what have you got in your hand? You've got a document signed by, sealed by the Supreme Court on an Attorney General. So what have you got in your hand? You've actually got a legal hand grenade if you know how to play it. Now all you have to do with that piece of paper is sign on the bottom and saying, I agree to co-join with Mr. Brian Shaw with this application. Isn't that simple? Now if you're in agreement to want to sign the bottom of that saying, I agree to co-join, I'll file those documents. Is that okay?
Yep.
Now if you don't want to do that, drop the thing in the bin on the way out. But it will actually mean that you totally agree to a Muslim agenda. Is that a fair comment to make?
Yep.
But if you disagree to a Muslim agenda, sign that document. Now, as a jury, you've got to decide whether that Rob Hole should go to trial. If you say, we agree he should have gone to trial, we've got an ordinary jury decision which then goes to the grand jury. Now, how does a grand jury work? It works when the Crown authorities refuse to indict the person. Effectively, you're sitting as a grand jury now. So there's a common law, statute law grand jury, ordinary jury over here. You are that grand jury. Fair? Now, how does grand jury work? Grand jury works when the Crown authorities decline or do not prosecute. Then it goes to you. You can say, well, we are saying that that is an indictable offence. You don't do any more than see that. You create what you call an indictment. You can't go to trial on a criminal offence unless you've got an indictment. Now, an indictment only comes from three sources. If it's a Commonwealth offence, Commonwealth DPPs. If it's a state offence, state DPPs. But if the charge is either treason or misprision of treason, it must be by grand jury. The government, including Holmes, has done everything they can to stop it going to grand jury. Now, basically all my work emanates out of Werribee. Why? Because people say, Brian Shaw will never get back to grand jury. Would you agree with that?
No.
Beg your pardon?
Who knows?
No. No. He will get it
Well,
to
it
grand
actually
jury.
means if you're going to do something, you're part of getting it there. If you want to drop it in the bin on the way out, you will go to the New World Order, you will go to this country will turn into Muslim, because that's their agenda. You've got one opportunity to make them accountable. No, not yet. Now what I did here, the problem is not the Vatican, because people say, oh, it's the Catholic Church, the Vatican that's doing it all. But they all forget about Jerusalem. So start looking at Jerusalem. The Catholic Church is certainly accountable here, and what have we got at the top? That's supposed to be St. Peter's Square. Does it look like a square to you? I'm going to get real nitty-gritty here. It's actually female genitalia, with the obelisk in the middle. I don't have to go any further than that. But in the middle, wherever that is Freemasonry. That's an obelisk that was towed out of Egypt in the 3rd century, towed across the Mediterranean and stuck in the Roman circus until they built this building. Then they dragged it out of there and put it there. Now Jeremiah 43:13 in the Old Testament says, I will destroy the obelisk of Heliopolis. And this is that one. Now the point I'd ask is, why did the Catholic Church do that in breach of Scripture? That's your question to the jury. So who's going to be held accountable here? The church or the politicians? You can have that one, Jerry. Which one are you bringing me now, please? Now we've done it like this, so you can all go over there later and photostat to your heart's content. Now, when the governor chucked the Queen out, and I'll read that section. Can somebody hold that up for me to read? Please. Said I had it, please. It says there, the Acts Amendment and Repeal Courts and Legal Practice Act, enacted 1st of January 2004. That's the name of the act. But at section 130, it says this. The Supreme Court Act of 1935 is amended. Section 9 is amended by deleting the Queen and substituting the Governor. Did you consent to that?
No.
Is that an indictable offence?
Yes.
Is that an act of treason?
Yes.
If treason is breach of allegiance, was the allegiance breached?
Yes.
You're the jury, you're the grand jury. They're the ordinary jury. I've got your 2 juries here instead of just listeners. Now, if it alters the Supreme Court Act of West Australia, does that catch every officer of the Supreme Court? That includes the law firms.
Yes.
Well, who's the Chief Justice sitting under that? That's this sucker, Wayne Martin. I've got him on 18 counts, pending grand jury. Ever been heard? Ever been heard? I've got a lot of correctors here. But should he stand trial? Why did Wayne Martin not stand trial? Because that's all you have to do. A delay in prosecution is a question of fact. As an ordinary jury to make that decision. Why did this person not stand trial? Your decision passes it to the grand jury. That's how it works. Got it? Your capacity to do that comes over section 43 of the Crimes Act Commonwealth. A delay in prosecution is a question of fact. Now what a question of fact means in opposition to a question of law is, a question of fact is exclusively for a jury trial. That's you and them. But now you need an indictment. If you get an indictment to go to trial, for instance your matter, Darren, they can never indict you.
They won't.
They can't. Because now Darren knows the magistrate and or judge is sitting outside of the Queen and the Crown.
So are we for that matter.
Beg your pardon?
So are my people for that matter. My
Yeah.
people are sitting outside the Crown.
Correct.
We're neither in the Constitution,
Correct.
which also gives us existing rights within it.
I agree with
It
you.
doesn't extinguish our rights.
No, I agree. But what Darren is talking about is he comes from our act, they're protecting trees in our act. Big Roads is saying, and I'll come to some agreement shortly, but that was a confrontation. Our bulldozers are going through your trees. Now here I'm going to ask a question. Is big roads legal after the Crown's removed?
No.
No.
Do they know that?
No.
Why?
Some of them do.
I think they
Why?
do.
Yeah.
Did you not tell him? Here comes the point. Who's the state minister that's responsible for big roads? Are you absolutely sure of that? Because that makes her the Attorney General of Victoria. But if it is, now find who that is, because that's the only one that you have to send to trial. You don't have to send the whole of big roads to trial. You send the state minister responsible for big roads. Now here's the point. Big roads have got thousands and thousands of people sitting under them. But once you tell big roads that the crown's been removed, do they have to inform their workers? Because they're all electors, correct?
Yes.
Now let me move to the church. Is any Christian church legally operating in Australia with the crown removed?
No.
But they're all going to church and they're all putting money in the thing. So
More fool them.
can you criminally charge the minister? I have. Particularly in Werribee. Now what had happened is I took my Werribee pastors were not listening because they wanted to keep concealing it. So I subpoenaed 6 of them to come to the Melbourne Magistrates Court on the 15th of December 2006. I had 28 defendants before the court. The pastors all sat in the back row, they heard what was there, and the Chief Magistrate, Ian Gray, killed them stone dead right there. And one of the people who came to get them off was the Commonwealth Director of Public Prosecutions, Damien Bowe. So a defendant made application to not send for continuing the process. Can you get your head around that?
No, I was just thinking that before you said it.
I can't get my head around it. So I said to the Chief Magistrate, when he said, Mr. Shaw, you're non-suited now. That actually means you can shut the door on your way out.
Mr. Shaw, you treat that thing like an ice cream.
Stop, please. But in the interim, I said to him, I had 3 files on the desk for 28 defendants. And I said to him, but what'll I do with these? Because I was ready for what he was doing. And he said, well, what are they? I said, they're grand jury applications for all the defendants when the DPP declines to present. And I just heard him say that. So these are now live. He just said to me, because I said, I rely entirely on Section 44 of the Constitution of the Commonwealth. Anybody know what that says? And anybody who does know, don't put up your hand. Because they'll actually say, yeah, I know. But I'm forcing you to find what that section is, because it's the most critical section of law you've got. Section 44 of the Commonwealth Constitution. Jerry, is there a little book there? Please. It's over there on the video table. You can't leave that jury table. Sorry. I'm playing games with that.
But Brian, just quickly, the Constitution's been walked over. We've got to get it back up and running.
Hang on. That'll all be open to questions and answers. Because it's really dangerous to open the floor until you find the facts.
Yeah.
But, no, I don't need any of that. This is your constitution. If you walk into any Australian Electoral Commission office, they have to give you this. Sometimes they'll say, oh, we can only give you one. But when you look at the front, there's a big problem at the front. The Australian Solicitor's Office has put a copyright on it.
Copyright.
Not legal. Hello, somebody copyrighted your constitution. Yeah, well, they done, it's on the front, you can see it. Does anybody want to charge him for doing that?
No, I do.
Now, do you know how to do that?
No.
Grand jury.
That's a fair start. It's a fair start. But the point I'm making is, have they got an intent of why they copyrighted your document? Clearly, it's to take it away from you.
Yes, yeah.
But if you walk into any Australian Electoral Commission office, they must give you this document. They'll say, oh, we've only got one. I said, that's a good start. I'll be back in a week for another 10. If you don't go back, you won't get the rest. That's how come we get all these little suckers.
You can also go to MP's offices too.
Yeah, and you can get them from your federal MP, is what Jim's saying. But Section 44 is your disqualification section. Now, when I criminally charged Kim Beasley, who was the leader of the Labor Party when I charged him over in West Australia, his barrister rang me, Richter, and said, remove that charge from my client because there's no such thing as the offence of treason. Well, is treason in this?
No.
What section is the treason in this? What subsection? You're correct with that. So subsection 2. Now this actually said that subsection 2, that any senator or House of Rep attainted of treason can't sit. Well, how can you get them attainted of treason if they won't hear the law of the prosecution? They'll only hear it if you do something with that piece of paper you've got in your hand. Who's the president of your Court of Appeal, which is the full court on the top of that document? Who's your president today? You're all going to say, I don't know. No, stop. People who know that answer don't answer. You're in the jury. You're not supposed to know. You're supposed to be impartial. A guy called Chris Maxwell is the president. He's a reasonable guy, but he's not letting this through. Why? Because he, in actual fact, works for the United Nations as the trustee in bankruptcy. But he should have declared that to the courtroom. Because we can't charge the United Nations people because we can't find them. But we can find the ones we're looking at. Now that gives you the power and the right to place any magistrate or judge under arrest in their own courtroom because they haven't got the UN armband on. So Queen and Crown gone January 1, 2004. Since then they've been sitting under our trustee in bankruptcy. I assume you all knew you had a trustee. Well, a non-disclosure of a material fact is fraud. So can you charge them for fraud? Now, what you're saying is, yeah, you're telling us all this stuff, but how do we do it? Sign that piece of paper you've got there and say, I agree to co-join with this application.
Why didn't you write that on there for us?
Oh, mate, you should have seen all the hassles I've had just to get that done by the
So
IT
this
people.
photocopy is all we need with that one.
Correct. And then give it to me.
What about the Governor General?
We'll catch a lot of them as this seeks where it's got to go first. But this opposition to let you go to grand jury, it's like a brick wall. But if you understand what I'm showing you how to do and do it, excuse the expression, I don't need your signatures on that to make this happen. Because I've concentrated entirely on Werribee. I was born in Werribee. Big problem. Can you bring Mary McKillop up, Jerry, please? The Catholic Church has got a big problem in Werribee now. No, not Julia. A different issue.
She's got the canonized saints, isn't
She lives.
Jerry, it's there. There, on the wall, Jerry. Look at it. Right front end.
She doesn't live there in Werribee, does she?
No, just get that, mate. That forward, please. There she is, looking at you.
Well, I
It's on the wall, Jerry.
following me. I've
Go
started
and get it, someone who can see what he's
Facebook
looking
Trucking
at.
Farmer Veterans Alliance. It's gone worldwide. I've got people.
I told you, I warned you, he's all right.
I'm a born again Christian. I should be dead. God has done miracles in my life.
Now, what are you looking at here? You're looking at a lady who's called Mary McKillop.
Me off with my fiance.
But what's the problem? I've given the Catholic Church until the end of February to remove all pictures of that one from their church. Because this is my dad's sister.
Roscoe.
Mary McKillop.
Well, why is that two different pictures?
Hang on, so is your sister
Why is
Mary
there two
McKillop?
different
Is your dad's sister Mary
No,
McKillop?
no, no. There's the original. Why is it two
Everyone in
different pictures?
Australia following me.
That's the whole
Ringing me
face.
and calling me a legend.
So So did they steal my auntie's
Yeah, I've
image
had
and
a
she
gut
looks
for
more
the
cosmetic?
rules.
They look the same to me.
I look the same.
What are we comparing?
Now what I'm saying, because this particular picture was always in the kitchen of my grandmother at her house. And as kids, we were not allowed to ever touch this picture. So I know this picture very well. She was even in the back of my car one day because she come to convert me back to the Catholic Church. That was a 4-mile walk. I said, hop in the car, I'll run you back. So they're now saying, oh, well, you've just got it wrong. But isn't that a jury decision? Did the Catholic Church go all the way to the Vatican to canonise the wrong lady? That's your question. Did the Catholic Church go all the way to the Vatican and canonise the wrong woman?
Sounds like it.
Well, I've told them I'll give you to the end of February to take her pictures out of every Catholic church, or then we move to litigation. Now, what's the problem for the Catholic Church when you do that?
Publicity.
No, think legal, mate.
Oh.
Fraud.
What is the problem for the Catholic Church when that comes into the courtroom?
Fraud.
No, you're not thinking out the box, outside the box. Can the Catholic Church be legal with the crown out? Well, they've got a hell of a problem when they come into the courtroom, because can the lawyers come in and help them?
No.
Or are the lawyers taking your money off you when you have litigation and not telling you the crown's out? So we're whistling Dixie. Is that right or wrong? And if you tried to go through all this litigation, you won't know what you're doing. I know what I'm doing. All I need is you to say, I agree to co-join with this application. Put your name and address and sign it on the bottom. Maybe a phone number would be handy too. Because when you ring me and say, where's that at? I'll guarantee to present that to Chris Maxwell. Now, I'm a vexatious litigant in Victoria. What does that mean?
No idea.
It means I can't file documents without leave of a judge. Why did they make me a vexatious litigant? Different question. Who made me a vexatious litigant?
Because you know too much.
Rob Holsby. Got it? So Rob Holmes is saying I have to take him and make him a vexatious litigant because he's revealed that I'm a criminal. So their courts agreed with it. But after January 1, 2004, could any court make that order? Could any court get out of their house and get in the car and go and sit on the bench? Could any law firm come in and help them?
No.
You know that sign that says trespassers will be guaranteed to be prosecuted? Why don't you use it? Because isn't this what they're doing? Are they trespassers on your law?
Yes.
Who's guarding your law? It's supposed to be the High Court. Now, there's a High Court writ at the High Court. I filed it and served it, not for the High Court to be able to hear it, but I filed Shaw versus 43 defendants. You know how I can make it so many? They can't file a defence. Do you know what I mean by that? How are you going to file a defence to actually say we were legally able to remove the crown? Well, that's why they can't file a defence. So it didn't matter if I put 100 defendants on that, they can't file a defence. Is that right or wrong? Of course it's right. You're the jury. Why did this not go to trial?
Can't follow the funds.
Beg your pardon?
Can't follow the funds.
Well, not only that, but they don't want it to go to trial. Now, when I was doing all these charges, I had to go and sit in the office of the man who ran the Magistrates Court in Melbourne. And he said this to me: you're charging pretty important people in this country. That was his question to me. What was my answer to him? Beg your pardon? Not even that. I just simply said, I'm charging criminals involved in criminal activity, and that's why your staff are signing them off. I knew he dragged me in there just to get it on the transcript, to see if he could, what you say, see why this guy's doing this. I've charged Governor Generals, governors, Supreme Court judges and preachers. Is that fair?
You haven't
Why?
discriminated.
Beg your pardon?
You haven't discriminated.
None at all. But it was really funny when I served the preachers with their subpoenas, because if you don't put conduct money on a subpoena, it's not valid. So I walked into their office in Werribee with the subpoena and $5 attached to it. Every preacher in Werribee took the $5 off and put it in their pocket. But when I issued a subpoena to the Masonic Lodge to bring their membership to the court, membership list, $10 on that subpoena. They spent a half an hour in the back room and then come out and said, Mr. Shaw, we will honour your subpoena. We don't need your $10. We'll get ourselves there. The Masonic Lodge gave me back the $10. The preacher put it in their pocket. Now, why did they put it in their pocket? Because it would have had to show up on the books.
A record.
And somebody said, oh, what's the $5? Oh, that was a subpoena, right? You got a subpoena? As our preacher? What for? Because we don't know. Because all of those preachers who were in the back seat of the Melbourne Met concealed all of that from the churches in Werribee. Can I criminally charge them for that? That's the point I'm making. Now, who was the federal member of Werribee when I criminally charged their federal politician?
Julie Gillard.
Who was the former politician before Gillard for Werribee? That was Barry Jones. Now, at one point, I walked in a question to his office. Now, Barry Jones is apparently a person that cannot not answer a question. He will give you 6 variations of the question that with the answer. I only gave him one question. Who owns and runs International Freemasonry? Barry couldn't answer the question because he wasn't allowed to answer the question. But if you don't uncover that, the United Nations can only function in Australia through Freemasonry because they need what's called boots on the ground. What they want to do, they need to destroy all any mention of Christianity, so they can bring in, through the Masonic Lodge, the oath to Allah, which is to Allah at the shrine level. But, as I said to 7 Muslims one day, sitting outside the Melbourne Magistrates Court, I said, are you guys in here for something on fraud? Yep. You can bring that over, please. Yep. I said, but you got fraud in your Quran. They didn't get upset. It's really unusual to actually attack the Quran and not get them upset. But I just simply asked this question. In your Quran, is there a female spiritual opponent to whoever you see as God? Never heard of this question. I said, so you haven't got a female spiritual opponent. Now, what's the evidence of a female spiritual opponent in Melbourne? I'll tell you what it is, because you're all looking at me blank.
Trick question?
Big pardon?
Is that a trick question?
Oh, it's a straight up question. I was asking them the same question. But why is the statue of justice above the Supreme Court? Is that a male or female?
Female.
Well, there she is.
And the statue.
And I said to these 7 Muslims, I said, why is the statue above? Because they can see that where we're sitting. They go, I don't know. I said, well, look, that's all the scriptures you've taken out of our Old Testament and New Testament to do your Quran. But if I was to put you in a witness box right now, you don't know what I'm talking about. But the Old Testament scripture, Micah chapter 7 verse 10 says, she that is my enemy. Now, do you know what all them Muslims did? Every one of them grabbed all the serviettes on the table and said, we want every scripture you got on that. They're doing more than the Aussie. Because the Aussie doesn't even open up the book to see who is this. But I can tell you right now, she's dancing and playing with all of this. And the only way you can stop her dead in the tracks is the very scriptures that you're not bringing. The churches won't bring them.
No.
But I've been banned from churches. I've been thrown out of churches. Because I give them scripture they won't give you. And I say to them, why don't you give it to the people? Because they're all used to just giving you so much. but not the rest of it. Now, if you find that High Court writ, there's 116 exhibits in that writ, it's 1,500 pages. If you're going to just keep scrolling it on your computer, you won't get very far. You need to go into it and find what's called the index of exhibits. That clearly lays out what exhibit you will be looking for. And then just go find that. All the exhibits are numbered, all the pages are numbered on the top right-hand corner, so it's not all that difficult to go and find it. The one who really wants to get into it will just simply download the whole lot, put it in its correct order. But you need to find the index of exhibits to work that document. Otherwise you're lost. The screen will just keep scrolling. And when you get to the one you want, i.e. Jeremy Daly, United States. What's the Jeremy Daly exhibit? Fair comment. Could you give me that folder over there, please? It's there. Now this document Jerry's holding, what's this revealing? Show the jury, please. Now all of these are available on the wall after this, so you can do whatever you want to do with your phones.
Better look at it yourself, Jerryman.
Jerry. Now, I found that in the Supreme Court Library a long, long time ago when I was looking for something else. That's the 1540 banning of the Knights of St John of Jerusalem from England. What's this picture? This is Quentin Bryce with Alec Chernoff as Knights of St John of Jerusalem. Well, how the hell did they get there if they were banned? Fair question.
Very.
But this was one of the five judges who blocked grand jury in 2001. This one went on to be your Governor of Victoria. Why did he go to trial? Did you know that you had a governor who's on an indictable offence? Now that you do know, what are you going to do? Because if you do nothing, they'll get away with this. Now, when you look at those exhibits at the High Court, exhibit number 1 is scripture. Now, you're going to spit your dummy and say, what the hell's he got scripture in here for? Because scripture is spiritual, and you're dealing with spirit. But that first exhibit is Lamentations chapter 2, the slaughter of Israel by God. And you sort of say, oh, that's a bit heavy. But Ezekiel 37, exhibit number 2, is the resurrection of Israel by God.
Yes.
They've never been delivered in a Christian pulpit, or a Jewish pulpit, or a Muslim pulpit at all. So I made it exhibit number 1 and exhibit number 2 to confuse the hell out of you. Because you're going to go, I don't understand this. But this is where the judges and the magistrates and the lawyers are at. Because Luke 11:52 says this, woe unto you lawyers, for you've taken away the key of knowledge. And I said to a barrister, what's the key of knowledge? And he said, I haven't got a clue. And I said, well, God's calling you a bloody idiot, Colin. But could I apply the same to all of you? What is the key of knowledge? And you'll all say the same of what the barrister said. You're going to say, I don't know. Why? Because you didn't read the spiritual law. The cults work in you because they know you didn't. So the changes you're getting are spiritual changes to send you and put you on a truck to the New World Order.
Yes.
If you want to go there, that's your choice.
I don't.
But have you been given the whole story
No.
before you get on the truck? But who are they using in Australia to keep you on the truck? They're using your police force, state and federal. They're using your military in all arms. Who's your current Governor General?
Quentin Bryce?
Hey, come on, folks. Can the jury answer that question? Who is your current Governor General? Now, I'm going to help you answer
He's a
it.
military bloke.
It's very definitely military. It's David Hurley. Now, do any of you understand what a 78B notice is out of the Judiciary Act? If you do, please put up your hand.
I missed that one. What did you say, Brian?
78B notice to all the Attorney Generals. Do any of you understand that? law. Now,
We have a hand.
I'm not going to answer
Okay.
the bloody question.
but that's section 78B out of the Judiciary Act 1903. Now, how the Judiciary Act is, your constitution is like the car, but the judiciary is the key. You can sit in the car, but it's not going to happen until you activate it with the Judiciary Act 1903. But here comes the issue. Under section 78B, whenever a constitutional point comes up, all the Attorney Generals are supposed to be notified. That's the statute law. But what does section 88 of the same Act say? It actually says the Governor General's got to do the 78B. Well, you've got a big problem now. Because the Governor General would say to all these Attorney Generals, not only am I sitting illegally, but I reckon you all are, and I don't know how to do the 78B. Because he's written back to me to say I'm not getting involved. But does the section make him get involved? I'm going to give it to you loud and clear. Section 78B makes you tell the Attorney Generals if you've got a constitutional point. Got that?
Yep.
Section 88 says the Governor General's got to tell them. So if you don't want to get your Governor General up off his arse to do his job, he's going to do his job for the UN. Because he can't be legal as your Governor General, Crown out. He knows the Crown's out. Now, I wrote a letter to both her and him, co-letter. You'll find that on my website. Anyone who doesn't know that website, don't leave here tonight without knowing what it is. Otherwise, you won't find all this evidence. It's all on the website. But all I'm saying is, I've concentrated entirely on Werribee. I don't have to tell you what to do and how to go do it. But all that, what you've got in your hand, this jury is going to say Rob Holes should have gone to trial. I know they're going to say that. Because there's no point sitting there saying Rob Holes does not have to go to trial. Because when I said to the Chief Magistrate on that day, the 28th, I said I rely entirely on section 44 of the Constitution for what I'm doing. This was his answer. You will not be relying on the Constitution in my court.
His court.
His court. That was his exact answer.
Not
So-
did you say not relying
No, you can't lie.
on the, you can't use the Constitution?
That's section of the
Correct.
Well, that's wrong.
Yeah, but what did you do about it? Because I went back to the court the next day and criminally charged him. And they said, oh, you can't serve the Chief Magistrate. She's supposed to give personal service on a criminal charge. So we'll let you do registered post for this one. So he'd adjourned it for the cost application. They wanted a cost against me. But to the 29th of January. So I thought, well, I'm not tolerating that, so I went back the next day and charged him. I charged another 12 on the 29th of January 2007.
Excellent.
Was Julia Gillard one of them?
Yes. And she'll never go
Was
to court.
she in a Commonwealth election in 3 months after that? Did she tell you, as the electors, I'm on a criminal charge?
No.
Get my point? And that's why it's Werribee for me. Because I've got Mary McKillop telling them to get that picture out of there. I've got Julia Gillard, the Commonwealth one, who never told anything to the Werribee elector. And now we've got what you call contaminated soil from the tunnel going to Werribee. But it's not contaminated soil. It will be radioactive soil. I'll tell you how I would know that. Because a mate of mine who'd read every tree in Swan Hill and logged every one with his Geiger counter, came and stayed at my place one night and went into Parliament House at midnight to read the drain coming out of Parliament House with his Geiger counter, because he seems that this is his project. And he's standing there with the Geiger counter when the security guys all surround him at midnight because they think he's planning a bomb. What are you doing, mate? I'm just reading the drain with my Geiger counter. And then the thing started ticking. And they go, what's going on? He said, you're standing in radioactivity. Well, I'll step back. But then they said to him, we'll come tomorrow night and we'll take you in the tunnel. There's apparently a tunnel under Parliament House, goes under the river, up to the shrine. And he come back to my job. He said, they told me to let me in the tunnel. I said, what are you going to do? He said, if that thing read like it read out of the drain, I'm not going in that tunnel. I reckon this tunnel has hit that. How's that for an accusation? Now, would Werribee want radioactivity stuff? Or is that tunnel got no person in there now because they know it's radioactive? How did it get to be radioactive? It actually was 200 years of dropping contaminated material into the river, which leached through to the bottom, because you cannot get heavy metal out of water. So when they're saying recycled water, if it's had the heavy metals in, you haven't got recycled water, you've got heavy metal water. Is that fair? Not fair, because you think, oh, we might die with that. Well, if you let them continue to change your law, you're already dying as a nation. But I'm going to break here for about a quarter of an hour, just so we can all have what's called a normal break. But it's really dangerous giving you a break, because you all get over there and start prattling about your own issues and all the rest of it, when you actually forget, why the hell are you here?
Listen to you.
You're here because you can sign a document. I said to Chris Maxwell, him and I get along okay, he always rules against me, he's the president of the full court, and a very good guy. But I said, if you do not let it go to grand jury, I'm going to stack your door with so many criminal charges it won't be funny. That's what you've got in your hand now. Because if he's stopping that, then he can be charged for the exact same offence. Fair? Because if you find that treason has happened, now a Supreme Court judge in West Australia has said to me, what is the offence of treason, Mr. Shaw? I said, hey, Cobber, farmer from Werribee, you're the judge, you're asking me? He said, well, you're the one laying the charges. Now, it's as simple as this. What he was really saying is, give me the authority that says what treason is. Now, that's in some of your documents. It's certainly on the website. But treason is breach of allegiance, and the matter is R versus Casement, 1917, King's Bench at 2114. That's how you have to answer it. Because if you don't answer like that, it means you don't know what you're doing. Because when they ask the question, they're setting you up to see if you know what you're talking about. Now, I said to him, Your Honour, clearly you've breached the allegiance by taking the Queen out of the Supreme Court Act. So, Your Honour, you're the offender. Yeah. What are we going to do now? I've clearly revealed you're the crook. And then he said, but Mr. Shaw, if you're correct, this would have all the tendencies of letting the criminals out of the prison. My answer to him was, with the utmost respect, Your Honour, all the criminals are currently out of prison.
Not wrong.
And I added it with the respect. I said, are we on the same page? He said, I know what you're doing. I know what you're saying. And I said, so great. I ended up arresting 3 Supreme Court judges in the full court of the Supreme Court of West Australia. 150 people there. And they were going to give me first go, thinking that they're going to be here all day. And within 15 minutes, I showed those 3 judges that you're not allowed to do this, you cannot do this, you've committed an indictable offence, and you're all under arrest. And here's your charge sheet. Well, everyone in the courtroom would have been there for the whole day of hearing, and it's over in 15 minutes. Now, are they one of the 54 pending grand jury, which you'll find on that High Court writ? If you don't want to do anything, you are on the train to the New World Order. You're not going to get off it.
Brian, I'm just going to say, I've heard you in Bendigo about 3 years ago, and we just seem to be going around in circles.
Yeah, because when did you lay your charge?
Back then.
No, you never. You only gave a grand jury application. You did nothing else in the Bendigo Magistrates Court.
No.
Nobody else did. Now, there's a guy in Bendigo, picking up his point, a guy called Paul Rutledge.
Yeah.
Everyone better get on the train with what happened to Paul Rutledge. Unbeknownst to you, when you muck around with not paying council rates, when you muck around with that, they can go to the federal court and get you a trustee in bankruptcy without even you knowing they've done that. Are you aware of that? Well, if you're not paying your rates, that can happen to you in the federal court tomorrow. That's happened to Paul. The first he knew about when his trustee is knocking on his door, introducing himself as his trustee, is when the hell this happened. So he slammed the door on his face. Had 2 titles in Bendigo. That trustee went from his property to the Bendigo cop shop and said he fired a shot at me, and I'm his trustee. So the coppers got in the car, went down to his place, chucked it into the back of the divvy wagon, searched his house looking for the gun, couldn't find it, but he didn't get out of the remand centre for a year and 1 month. In the middle, the Bendigo Council sold both titles because they got a judgment from the federal court ex parte. You're whistling Dixie if you're not sorting out the fact that that can happen to you. And when it does, they'll have no mercy at all. They'll actually shut your bank account so you can't hire a lawyer. And I've seen it all happen.
So how do you do it without mucking around then?
You've got it in your hand. Point I make. When you're being attacked, shouldn't the job be attack the attacker? Do you know how to do that? Exactly. Now I used to give a Vietnam vet, he would stay in my house. Well, that won't hurt, he'll fall over or do something. But in the meantime, you're the jury. But in the interim, sorry. But he was staying at my place. He was a street fighter. He was a bouncer. But what's the difference between a ring fighter and a bouncer? A street fighter. The ring fighter will never start until he hears the bell ring. Street fighter will knock you out before the bell rings. That's what he did. So what am I saying here? If you want to play by their rules, you will get knocked out. If you want to swing the pendulum, you've got a document in your hand because that's got a stamp on it. They're all trying to ignore it, but we can give them some pressure, and I'm only saying this because now I've got an exceptionally active litigant out of Adelaide. Yes.
Robin would like instructions on how to do the bottom of that document.
What do I write?
Okay, what I'm saying is to write on the bottom of that, I grant permission to co-join this application with Mr. Brian Shaw, sign it, dated on that date, February 2006, because he's sending it back retrospectively.
I grant permission to co-join.
I hereby grant permission to co-join this application, and this is my name and my address, and sign it. Now, how simple is that?
How many people in Werribee have signed it?
No, Werribee won't touch it because Werribee doesn't know that it exists at the moment. Because what happens here is, and they're going to have to give me a bit of compassion. What I'm actually saying is, I know most of you won't, but this has been a long haul for me. A long one. But I couldn't understand who's blocking it until I found out that this all occurred in Yalta in 1945. And that's when the United Nations was formed, to be the trustee on every country that was in the Second World War. The debt's not been paid. But then in 1948, Australian Parliament put through the Nationality and Citizenship Act, 1948, that included the United Nations trustee into that act. There it is. So you've had a trustee since 1948. You haven't got a constitutional monarch because the United Kingdom is still under that same bankruptcy. Because the three big players who went to Yalta was Roosevelt, the United States, Churchill, the United Kingdom, and Stalin, Russia. You're actually under a Russian agenda right now. You're under martial law coming from that Yalta agreement. Do you like to hear that or not? Could you do something about it?
Do you know how much we are?
Beg your pardon?
Do you know how
I
much?
do not know, but your point's very valid because it comes down to this. If you find your way into that big red, all the exhibits are numbered, you'll find the Jeremy Daly matter. That's a man who lost his farm in the United States. He was both a lawyer and a farmer, so he sued First National for taking his farm off him. He put the president of First National in the witness box and only asked him one question. There was a jury. The question that he asked him is, where did you get the money that you allegedly gave me to buy my farm? The President of First National replied, we created it on the books. What was the jury decision? The jury's decision said that's an illegal transaction that gave him back his farm. That's an historical document, because what he was saying was, we created it by fractional reserve banking. Here's my point, coming to his question. If all that alleged war debt was created by fractional reserve banking, can you criminally charge him for fraud?
Well, this gets back to your birth certificate that I keep asking
I'm not talking about
about.
that at the moment, because that's a separate issue after our break.
You're going to have a break.
Because I sort of called the break 15 minutes ago.
I know, you lost me after that. I missed some very important information, so in future, don't mention break if you want people's attention.
Somebody said that the other day, but they
Well,
said,
listen
if you open the floor to them, you're going to have a rubber.
Don't mention break.
Mr. Shaw, is it correct to say I grant permission to co-join this application with Brian Shaw, sign it and then date it?
And then I can put my address and phone number on the back.
Be better on the front. And you can put it anywhere on the front, because wherever you've got space, as long as we know and they know who signs it. I know it'll be there, but that's not our here and their
Do you
document.
really want it on the front?
Yeah, because I'll photograph.
Because it's got to be on the front. Sorry, that's got to be on the front. Now, what I'm saying is this. One of my mates has set up a website that's called My Will Letter. He's become the power of attorney for anyone signing that. He's currently got like 5,000 of them. So that means I can give Chris Maxwell 5,000 a day. Got it? But they're not people who will see what has to be done in Melbourne. Now, there are plenty of people who sort of say, don't need to get involved in any of that, I want to do this, this and this. Well, that's their right, let them go and do it. But what I'm actually saying is, you elected a criminal to be your Prime Minister. You better come to grips with that, or you won't be able to open them doors on them trains when you put on them. Why do you think they're building the FEMA camps in the United States? Because apparently, allegedly, it's one of my exhibits at that High Court document. Here we go again, sorry. But apparently 26,000 pastors have signed Homeland Security documents that will permit them to transfer their entire congregation to FEMA camps. They should be charged for that. Because they get into them FEMA camps, they're never coming back out.
We've got them in Australia. People don't know that.
We've got them in Australia. Who are you charging them for? People are all on the web. They're happy to be on the web because they don't have to be in the courtroom. But if you're not coming into the courtroom, you're not in the arena. Now on that, please come back to your same seats, because you're an official jury.
Okay, Brian,
Can we break?
how do we get into the courtroom? If we could.
Send me
Oh,
that
but do I
document.
need an excuse to get into the courtroom? Like, do I need a speeding fine, or how do I get in?
Any of those will get you in. Now, can we break?
Going to break.
Everyone going
Back live streaming in 15 with Brian Shaw.